In 1969, a French chef and his wife took over a 17th century olive oil mill in a small village on the Côte d'Azur, near Caen in the south of France. Within 5 years, it had 3 Michelin stars, and within a decade, it was one of the most celebrated restaurants in the world. The chefs who trained there, Alain Ducasse, Daniel Boulogne, David Bouley, went on to define fine dining across the globe. And the man behind all of this, Roger Vergé. He became one of the founding fathers of Nouvelle cuisine and the creator of a cooking philosophy he called Cuisine du Soleil, the cuisine of the sun. A philosophy built not on impressing people, but on making them happy. This is Fabulously Delicious, the French food podcast, and I'm your host, Andrew Pryor. And this is the story of Roger Vergé. By the end of this episode, you will know the full story of one of the most important and most joyful figures in the history of French gastronomy. Where he came from, how a childhood spent watching his aunt cook in central France shaped everything that followed, the extraordinary journey through Africa and Jamaica that made his cooking unlike anybody else's, what he built at Le Moulin de Mougins, and why the gourmets called him the very incarnation of the great French chef for foreigners. This is provincial cuisine, Nouvelle cuisine, and the sunshine of the south of France, told through the life of the man who brought it all together. Roger Vergé is one of the great figures of 20th century French gastronomy, a chef who helped reshape how the world thought about French cooking and who carried the warmth, colour and generosity of provincial cuisine to dining rooms and kitchens across the globe. The Gourmets Guide described him as the very incarnation of the great French chef for foreigners, which is both a tribute and a very French kind of compliment. His cooking philosophy, which he called Cuisine du Soleil, the cuisine of the sun, was built on fresh local ingredients, light preparations, and a fundamental belief that food should make people happy rather than impress them. He trained some of the most celebrated chefs in the world. He helped invent Nouvelle cuisine alongside Bocuse and the Trois Brothers. And he did all of it from a converted mill on the Côte d'Azur, near Caen, in one of the most beautiful corners of France. Roger Vergé was born on the 7th of April in 1930 in Commentry, a small commune in the department of Algeria in central France. His father was a blacksmith, a practical working man's household, not a culinary one. But there was an aunt Célestine, and if you read any of Vergé's many cookbooks, and there were several, you will find her name in almost every dedication, because she was, by his own account, the person who first showed him what cooking could be. For his 5th birthday, she gave him a wooden bench so that he could stand next to her at the stove and watch as she prepared Sunday meals for the Vergé family. That image, a small boy on a wooden bench watching his aunt cook, is where the whole story begins. He once dreamed of becoming a pilot and retained a love of travel throughout his entire life. But food called louder. At 17, Vergé began his apprenticeship at Le Bourbonnais, a restaurant in his aunt's hometown, working under a chef named Alexis Achenet. From there, he made his way to Paris, to 2 of the most prestigious addresses in French gastronomy, Le Tour Argent and the Plaza Athénée, where he received a classical French culinary education of the highest order. But Vergé was not a man who was going to stay in one place. He left France entirely and spent years working in Africa, at the Mansour restaurant in Casablanca in Morocco, at l'Oasis in Algeria, and working for an airline catering service in Kenya. These experiences, the ingredients and the flavours, the light and the heat of the African continent, would eventually find their way into his cooking in ways that set him apart from almost every other French chef of his generation. Vergé was married twice. His first marriage ended in divorce, and he had 2 daughters from that relationship, Chantal and Brigitte. He later married Denise, who became his partner in every sense, personal and professional. It was with Denise that he opened Le Moulin de Mougins in 1969, and she remained at his side throughout the years that followed. They had a daughter together, Cordelia. By all accounts, Denise was a quiet but essential presence in the story of the Moulin. The kind of partnership that makes a great restaurant possible. Back in Europe in the 1960s, Vergé worked at the Hotel de Paris in Monte Carlo and at the two-star Club du Calvaret in the French Riviera, also working at the Plantation Inn in Jamaica. It was during this period that his cooking style began to crystallize into something distinctive. In 1969, he and Denise opened Le Moulin de Mougins, a 17th century olive oil mill in the village of Mougins, just a few kilometres from Cannes. The first Michelin star arrived in 1970, the second in 1972, and in 1974 came the third, the ultimate consecration. The restaurant's location near Cannes meant that celebrities arrived regularly from the film festival, and the Moulin became one of the great addresses of French gastronomy, a place where the food was brilliant and the atmosphere was warm and joyful rather than stiff or intimidating. The list of chefs who trained at the Moulin de Mougins reads like a roll call of the finest kitchens of the late 20th century. Alain Ducasse worked under Vergé, absorbing the provincial sensibility that would run through his own cooking for decades. Daniel Boulot was there, David Bruley, Jacques Maxime, Gilles Joujon, Denis Fitisson. The Moulin was a school as much as a restaurant, and Vergé was a teacher of the first order. In 1977, he opened a second address in Mougins, La Amandière de Mougins, focused on cuisine niçoise, and founded the École de Cuisine de Soleil on its first floor, a cooking school that was dedicated to sharing his philosophy with both professionals and home cooks. At the height of his powers in the mid-70s, Vergé held more Michelin stars than any other single chef in France. In 1982 came one of the more extraordinary chapters of his career, the opening of Les Chefs de France at the French Pavilion in Walt Disney World's Epcot Center in Orlando, Florida, in partnership with Paul Bocuse and Gaston Lenant. The idea that three of the greatest French chefs of the era would bring serious French cooking to the theme park in Florida felt improbable, but it worked, and it introduced French gastronomy to an audience that would never otherwise have encountered it. A perfect Vergé idea, which when you think about it, food should be for everybody. Roger Vergé believed that French food should be for everybody, not just those lucky enough to have had table at the Moulin de Mougins, which is exactly why the Epcot project made sense for him, and it's a belief that I share. Which is why, speaking of sharing French food with the world, I wanted to mention my book, Paris, a fabulous food guide to the world's most delicious city. I've recently nearly updated it, and this new edition is one that I'm most proud of. Over 100 additional pages on the history of food in Paris, because, well, understanding why Paris eats the way it does is just as important as knowing where to go, which, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, will surprise no one. All my favourite boulangeries, patisseries, fromageries, wine bars, markets, and some hidden gems are in there too. Plus new sections for vegan and vegetarian dining, beautiful food with a view options, and yes, there's a section on Emily in Paris. You can go and sit exactly where Emily sat. Absolutely no judgment for me at all. I love Emily in Paris. You can order directly from my website at andrewpryorfabulously.com. It's also on Amazon, or ask a local independent bookshop to order it in. Now, let's get back to Roger. Vergé was a deeply cultured man with a genuine love of art. Over the years, he transformed the Moulin de Mougins into something close to a living museum, filling it with works of art by friends including Cesare Boltocchini, Armand and Theo Tobias, who exhibited their work in the restaurant. He was charming, warm and remarkably unguarded for a chef of his stature. Those who met him consistently describe a man who was as generous in a person as his cooking suggested. He retained throughout his life the spirit of a traveller, curious, open and interested in ingredients and flavours far beyond the borders of France. It was that quality, more than anything, that made his cooking distinctive. His milestones accumulate quickly when you lay them out. 1970, his first Michelin star for Le Moulin de Mougins. 1972, the second Michelin star, and the Meilleur de France in the category of Maître de Métier de Bouche, the highest professional honour in French cooking. 1974, the third Michelin star, making him one of the most decorated chefs in France. 1982, the Epcot project with Bocuse and Lenotte, taking French gastronomy to America on a scale nobody had attempted before. In 1987, Chevalier of the Legion d'Honneur and Maître Cuisine de France. 2003, he retired, handing the Moulin to Alain Law. And in 2006, the inauguration edition of the International Festival was dedicated entirely to Vergé in recognition of his contribution to the village and to French gastronomy. A fitting tribute for a man who had spent the better part of 40 years making Mougins one of the most celebrated addresses in the culinary world. Roger Vergé died on the 5th of June in 2015 at his home in Mougins. He was 85 years old. The cause was complications from diabetes, confirmed by his daughter Cordelia. He died in the same village where he had built his life's work, which feels right for a man so deeply connected to the place. He's buried there. The Moulin de Mougins continued without him, and the festival that had been dedicated to him in 2006 continues to bear the mark of his legacy. The chef who brought the sunshine of Provence to the world went home quietly at the end, to the place where the sunshine had always been brightest. The tributes that followed his death were warm and consistent in what they emphasised. Not the stars, not the accolades, but the generosity. He was a chef who wanted to share rather than impress, who believed, as he wrote in the preface of his first cookbook, that happy cooking was the antithesis of cooking to impress. His own words remain the best summary of what he stood for. He wrote that his cooking was a light-hearted, healthy and natural way of cooking, which combines the product of the earth like a bouquet of wildflowers from the garden. American chef Norman Van Aken, who cited Vergé as one of these primary culinary mentors, described him as an extraordinary, charming human being, and noted that his willingness to use ingredients from beyond France at a time when almost none of his counterparts were doing so set him apart from everyone else in that remarkable generation. He was in the end the chef of the sun, and French gastronomy was warmer for his presence in it. Before we finish, a quick word. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the show, the best things you can do are leave a review and a rating on whatever platform that you're listening to it right now. It takes about 30 seconds and it makes an enormous difference to how many people find the podcast. So if Roger Vergé's story moved you at all, please do that. Merci beaucoup. You could also find me on Instagram at Andrew Pryor Fabulously. That's where I share French food history, fun facts, behind the scenes life from rural France, and all the things that don't quite fit into an episode. And if you'd rather watch than listen, the full video episodes are on YouTube. Same stories, same food, just with my face attached. Finally, I have a Substack, free to subscribe or paid if you'd like to support the show and get a little more of restaurant tips, recipes that I'm testing, behind the scenes stories, the kind of French food stories that come from actually living here in France. The link is in the show notes of this episode, or you can go to andrewpryorfabulously.com for more details. Come for the croissants and stay because you're fabulous. Et voila. That's the end of today's episode of Fabulously Delicious. If this episode made you want to drive to Mougins, open a bottle of provincial rosé, or simply cook something with a little more sunshine in it, parfait. If you enjoyed it, leave a review, share it with a fellow food lover, and come say bonjour. I always love hearing from you. And if Roger Vergé's story resonated with you, there's plenty more where that came from. So go and find my episodes on Paul Bocuse, Vergé's great friend and collaborator in the Nouvelle cuisine revolution. And if you want to go even further back into the history of French gastronomy, my episode on Marie-Antoine Carême, the chef who invented the entire language of classical French cooking, is waiting for you too. Just search Fabulously Delicious on whatever platform you're listening right now. Until next time, eat well, stay curious, and whatever you do it fabulously. Merci beaucoup and bon app. Until next time, au revoir et très bientôt.